Hi everyone, my name's Allie Lijewski, and I'm a junior at Loyola. I'm also a communications major with a specialization in digital media and journalism, and I'm also pursuing a minor in writing, and I'm in Atlas this year. I went on road trip last year. Obviously it was in person. This year it's a little different. So I really hope you guys get something out of this when you are watching this video, which is our talk. So yeah, and I will be talking about my personal story about what does the world need. When I went on road trip last year, I was searching for community and I found it. Given the state of our world, and if I put myself in your shoes, as sophomores that didn't have much time on campus, it's very possible that some of you might be searching for this too. I'm here to talk to you right now because I decided to show up, and this is where the world needs me to be. If you asked me a year or two ago, what does the world need? I don't even know what I would have said, but it probably wouldn't have been anything like this. I came to the realization that my road trip experience led me to community because of my deep discernment within myself, who I've been and what I've experienced within the past 2 years of my life. You see, everything in life is connected in some way. Everything does happen for a reason, and the universe guides you where you need to be mentally and physically. But that's not to say it will be easy all the time. Most of the time, we have to learn the hard way. And that's what happened to me, and right now, the world needs me to share my story and how a road trip changed me. 2 years ago, I was a first year at Loyola. I came into Loyola with open arms and an open mind because I knew deep down that I needed change. I had a pretty positive outlook on life. I believe that what will be, and things will work out as they should. I knew that I would experience challenges in my life, but not like this. My parents always had a rocky relationship, but it was never this extreme. After Thanksgiving break, I never wanted to go home again. My dad walked out on my family that night. Not much to be thankful for. Later on, I found out he was seeing someone else. Then my family and I almost lost our home. I lived at Loyola and blamed myself every day for it because it felt like my family split up because I left for college. My first year, I suffered from major anxiety that left me starving and sick for over a week because I literally couldn't eat or think about it without feeling so nauseous. I didn't even show up to meetings, lectures, or running practice that was something that gave me joy. I missed out on opportunities to get involved. Honestly, all I did was sit in my room or my boyfriend's room and cry. I also felt like my friends at the time could not listen or understand. They wanted to go out and have a good time, but I needed to stay in. It was hard to admit the truth. I felt like I was living in complete darkness. The only person that I really clung to was my boyfriend. The universe brought him to me when I needed it most, and in that way, my boyfriend asked, "What does the world need?" by simply showing up for me without even realizing, he asked the question. But when I couldn't eat, that was the turning point for me when I realized that I needed to make the change. It felt like I was stuck in perpetual darkness. It felt like I had no muscle. I couldn't use my mind to think or get out of bed to turn on the light. And I will tell you that after a while, this is not good for you. What are you doing for yourself or the community by simply sitting in bed all day? How could I be there for others if I couldn't be there for myself? How do I show up for my life again? And one morning, I took a baby step. I flipped the switch. Flipping the switch is gradual. So imagine this. You can close your eyes if you want. It's evening. You get home, and the first light you turn on is a light by the front door. You don't turn on every single light at once. It's way too overwhelming. So you turn on the first light because you don't want to be in the dark anymore. As you go into the living room, you turn on that light too, and then maybe the kitchen. And eventually you have to go upstairs, so you turn off those lights. It's dark again, but maybe you're not as scared this time. And you know what to do. So you make the decision to flip the switch in the hallway. You turn on your bedroom light and then the bathroom. And if you decide to wake up early enough, you might just turn on every single light in the house. Flipping the switch is showing up for your life. You can't show up for others if you can't show up for yourself first. Right now, the world needs you to show up. We're living in a time when it's not hard to sit back and watch the world go on without us. Facing the realities of our world can be really difficult, but despite this, we can still be active in our lives and in the lives of others. If we aren't, then we don't produce change, and change is good. We're living through a pandemic and one of the most historical times in our lives. Yes, the world can seem out of control at times, but you have the power to show up for yourself and for others every day, as opposed to letting the world move on without you. At Loyola, join the club you've been considering. Talk to the person you look up to, but you don't know yet. Take that opportunity that might just take you where the world needs you to be. When other people take the time to reach out to you with opportunities or invitations, take them. Walking into new spaces and not knowing why allows you to be vulnerable and open to this change. The more you walk into the uncertainty, the more certain that this becomes. You've already taken that first step because you're here on road trip right now. Showing up is a world need. The world has been in darkness, but there's purpose even in that darkness. Nothing would ever change on our planet, in our country, or in our community if nobody showed up. And in 2020, we've shown up to advocate for those in our world through Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ+, climate change, women's rights, and then an historic election. We set records for the amount of people that showed up to vote, in person and at home. And if Stacey Abrams didn't show up for the needs of her community in Georgia, maybe things would have been different. We saw the need to show up even in the midst of a pandemic, when this world is so unknown. Showing up can be exhausting, but it's worth it. And if we don't show up, the world would be stagnant. Our mental health wouldn't be good, our communities left unhappy and helpless, and our world would be quite lonely without us. And this isn't only true on a global or national scale. Our small daily choices have an equally large impact. If my evergreen wasn't present mentally and physically every week for Messina, I wouldn't be here. He chose to show up every week because the world needed him to be an evergreen and eventually an atlas. He told me to go on road trip, and now I'm here to listen, understand, and build community with you. If Tony wasn't an atlas last year, I probably wouldn't be here either. Sophomore year, I made a pact with myself that I would take opportunities and show up for my life. But when you start to flip that switch, sometimes the light goes out unexpectedly. A week before I went on road trip, I almost backed out due to my anxieties. I was in this room that I'm standing in right now, and I was so anxious about road trip. I was scared because I didn't know why I needed to go on road trip. We make showing up sound so simple, but sometimes it can be one of the hardest decisions. But I will tell you that it is an act of bravery. Sometimes you have to show up, even if the purpose is unknown. Showing up isn't only being physically present, it's about being mentally engaged. If you're watching a movie, you're physically present in front of the screen. But if you scroll through your phone instead of being engaged, how much of that movie do you actually remember? The same principle applies to our lives. If you decide to show up, really be present. Be present, be engaged, and show up for your life. The world doesn't want you to miss out on the little things that bring you joy or the opportunities that will take you places that you never imagined. What makes you upset? What makes you inspired? And what can you do right now to show up for your community? This process has helped me become closer to the person I want and need to be. After road trip, I made friendships that I've continued to show up for in person and virtually that have changed my life. Before COVID, we went on runs and worked out, we ate lunch every Friday, and made the choice to show up for each other. Even in this virtual setting, I've shown up for these relationships through numerous calls, FaceTimes, and very brief, socially distant, in-person visits that have gotten me through this time. I've been able to show up for myself by asking, what does my mind and body need right now in this moment? I fostered passions and hobbies like running and meeting my goals, reading a lot of books, and creating YouTube videos just because it brings me joy. As this spring semester is beginning, I'm still asking myself, how can I show up in my life for myself and for others? And I will tell you that when you don't show up, you miss out on a lot. You lose out on communities and experiences that could have changed your life and the lives of others, like creating new relationships, finding new passions, and making much needed changes. And when you do show up, you gain knowledge and experience that is only beneficial for you and for others. Showing up and being present is at the core of Road Trip. And because you decided to show up as an individual, we are showing up as a larger community and going through this process of discernment together. And right now, the world needs you to flip that switch and show up in the best way for you and for your community. And through Road Trip, I gained community. I began asking myself the importance of where I was then, where I am now, and why I am here. And when you are watching this, I will most likely be on campus at Loyola. So I have to ask you, in what ways can you show up in your life? How are you already meeting the needs of the world? And how can you continue to be present today? Thank you.